Hello, welcome everyone to this week's Millie's Industry Interview Monday. Each week we are joined by a professional in the arts and entertainment industry to talk a little bit about their career path and what exactly it is they do. Today I have our student host, Helen. Helen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Helen. I am a third-year biochem student at Barnard, and I am also a student worker for Student Life.
And you're in some ballet clubs, too.
And I'm also in some ballet clubs, yes.
And we are joined today with our professional, Skylar Brandt. Skylar, would you please give us an introduction?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. First of all, my name is Skylar Brandt, and I'm a principal dancer at American Ballet Theatre.
Woohoo! So I'd like to start these sessions off by kind of getting a little more insight into your career path and how you wound up where you are today. Could you take us on your journey for us?
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm actually from New York originally, and I grew up watching American Ballet Theatre performances, and I was so inspired by the ballet company. I just really fell in love with the art form, everything from the costumes to the music to the stories to, the fact that adults were essentially playing dress up and portraying princesses and princes and swan queens and fairies for a living. I was like, well, that's what I do at home in my bedroom. And I just thought, this is what I want to do with my life. And so I began studying ballet at about 6 years old. And then at 8 years old, I told my parents, this is what I want to do. And they were quite taken aback by this because, most people don't even know what they want to do when they graduate college. So they were thinking, how is it that my 8-year-old already knows what she wants to do with her life? And I'm pretty sure they tried everything in the book to make sure that this was really what I wanted to do. They put me in soccer, they put me in piano, they put me in tennis. And I was like, no, guys, this is it. I want to do ballet. So thankfully, at 8 years old, I really just started training to become professional. And being from Westchester, I would commute into New York City just about every day for training. And then when I was 12 years old, I moved into the city full time. At that point, my sisters were both out of the house, going to college at NYU, and my parents were able to move with me. We moved into a small one-bedroom apartment to begin, just as a trial year. And I just remember being really sneaky. I said to them, no, Mom and Dad, don't you think that, you're going to want to watch movies at night? And Dad, you like to get a midnight snack. And, I really need my rest. And I really need to have my quiet time so I can go to school and do dance. So I think I should be in the bedroom. And they were like, you know what? You kind of have a point. And so I ended up being in the master bedroom. They slept on, I know, crazy, right? They slept on a bed in the living room, which also doubled as our couch. And we lived like that for a year until they finally trusted me and believed me that this was going to happen. And we moved into a 2-bedroom apartment. And basically, I attended American Ballet Theater's summer programs. I supered in their productions as a kid. I joined their school. And then I joined their junior company when I was 16 years old. I started working for them. Their junior company is essentially a theater company for the main ABT company, and it consists of about 12 dancers, about 6 men and 6 women. And so I've grown up in the institution. I would say that, from a young age, since I was so narrow-minded about the fact that I would join ABT, I thought that it would be wise to let them get to know me. And then from there at 17, I joined ABT, and the rest is history. And now, it's 11 years later.
Yay.
That's a lot. That's the short side of it, I guess.
No, that's great. I'm really interested in maybe having you explain a little bit more about what a feeder company does for our students who maybe aren't interested in that.
Absolutely, yes. It's not uncommon for large dance companies to have a junior company with people ranging from 16 to early 20s. And it's essentially a place where I would say it's almost like you can finish your training in that stage as a person that's embarking on a professional career. And it's very prestigious to be in that junior company because, again, it's only, 12 people. And then from there, at least at American Ballet Theatre, they would usually take 2 people per year. And probably the max amount of time that you would spend in the junior company is 2 years. So if you weren't offered a contract with ABT after 2 years, then it basically means you should probably start to search for another job. But again, the junior company really sets you up to be able to go anywhere. And it truly is its own professional company. We were on a payroll, we did tours, we did performances, and we were really responsible for ourselves. So as a 16-year-old, I definitely did a lot of growing in that period that set me up to be able to join ABT, which has 90 dancers, and it's a much larger pool of people.
Great, thank you. Helen, so far, do you have any questions?
I did want to ask what did it feel like when you knew that you were, like, your dream was about to come true? So I guess when you got accepted into the company.
Yeah, it was really, in a way, it was surreal. And in another way, it didn't surprise me at all. I think that the mentality I had from a young age was that, no, this is happening. Like, zero doubts in my mind, even though it totally could have not happened the way I envisioned it to. But I think that was truly the amount of drive that I had within me and the amount of determination I had to make my dreams come to fruition in exactly the place I wanted it to, at exactly the time I wanted it to. And I actually, when I was young, I made a timeline of how I wanted my career to go. And I sealed it up and I put it in an envelope and I was like, I'll open this when I'm like 65. I still haven't opened it again, but I vaguely remember it was like, okay, I'm going to get into the junior company at 16, going to join American Ballet Theatre at, 17. I'll be at the Corps de Ballet at 18. Then at 20, I'll be a soloist, and 22, I'll be a principal. And it definitely didn't happen quite like that. It took a little bit longer. But I was, overwhelmed with gratitude when things were moving in the right direction, but also sort of expecting that this would be the case for me because, again, it's everything I hoped for and dreamed for. And it was the level of expectation I had for myself. So
that's so great. I love hearing stories about, like, people's dreams coming true. I just love that.
Yeah, I feel pretty fortunate, I have to say.
Yeah. I mean, you worked hard though too, so it's not like it just magically appeared,
Yeah, it's definitely a combination of things. I always like to touch on how fortunate I was growing up. I had a lot of resources available to me. My parents were there for me emotionally, and not everyone has parents that support their dreams. My parents were there to provide me with this sort of education that I wanted and needed to be able to make my dreams come true. I really had everything I needed to make it happen, and I knew that, and that made me really conscious of not wanting to squander any of these resources because I knew just how lucky I was and how many other children there were out there that didn't have the same privileges that I have and that I had. So definitely is a lot of hard work and definitely a lot of, good fortune for which I'm so grateful for every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the questions that a student submitted to us is about body standards. I think the more we progress as a society, the more you hear about horrible practices in ballet. And, I know very little from working as a production manager and a stage manager in ballet, but I think that the only thing that mainstream media hears is about the really negative ways to get to the ideal body for ballet. And we'd love to hear you talk a little bit about how you coped with body standard issues, or how, what in the ballet world is it about nutrition, about body? Like, tell us about your experience about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think ballet does have that reputation, and for good reason. When someone like Gelsey Kirkland was dancing, super legendary ballerina, definitely had an eating disorder. She definitely, you know, was probably, there were probably people on her about her weight. And I remember reading in her book, she would slice up an apple into like 3 meals, and she would eat like 1 apple a day. And that is so wild to me, because I grew up in an environment where we had nutritionists, we had physical therapists speaking to us about being healthy. And that being said, of course, there are going to be those few cases of people that are still struggling with their weight. But I think that, you know, obviously as ballet dancers, we're also athletes, and we're dancing all day long, and we actually need to take in a lot of calories just to be able to continue to fuel our bodies, not dissimilar to an Olympic athlete or swimmer or runner who might eat a lot of calories before a performance or that kind of thing. That being said, again, you know, I think we're slowly but surely entering into an age where more body types are accepted and recognized. There are definitely ballerinas in ABT with big boobs and curves and hips, and it's funny because I'm naturally petite. Like, I come from a short family and a small family, and I feel like these things kind of work in both ways. I feel that in the company, I have not been often looked at as super womanly or sexy, or and so for those reasons, I think I've been cast in a certain type of way for a lot of my career, whereas I might wish to do some of these more alluring roles, but because of my small frame, it seems to limit me. And I'm sure that someone who's a bit bustier or a bit more curvaceous feels the exact same way in the opposite direction. So there are definitely both sides to the coin, but I think that more and more the industry is just striving towards healthiness, whatever that means for each individual, which is a great time in this ballet world to be in, to be growing up in.
Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Helen, do you have any follow-up questions so far?
Sure. Skylar, do you have a favorite snack or something to munch on in between rehearsals?
Yeah, I love nuts. I don't know. I just could eat bags and bags and bags of nuts. I definitely try to be good about packing snacks, again, to be able to snack throughout the day, because as much as American Ballet Theatre likes to try to give us a lunch break, sometimes it's just not possible. And so we end up dancing from 10 until 7 without a break. And those are the days that I try to plan ahead and, have things on hand, sliced apple, nuts, banana, cookies, whatever, energy bar. I'm all about the desserts. So, I like those types of snacks.
Great. Thank you. So I'm curious about, we have had a couple of, people from different careers in talking about collective bargaining and unions. And, we had someone on who is an IATSE member last week. And I don't actually know about a dance union. So I'm wondering if you can talk about that a little.
Yeah, so the ballet dancers at American Ballet Theatre are part of AGMA, which also covers stage hands, or rather stage managers, musicians, and dancers. And it's been an amazing experience to be a part of a union. I think that, especially for ballet dancers, we obviously do it because we love it. We're not making, ridiculous amounts of money doing this, such as, maybe basketball players, other kinds of athletes out there. So we have to be really strong in fighting for our rights. And I lived through a period of time in ABT where we had to really band together. And I remember just in renegotiating our dancer contracts, there was a night that all of us in solidarity stayed at American Ballet Theatre after 7 hours of work and stayed there in the studios until 1 o'clock in the morning, just while meetings were happening upstairs between our AGMA representatives and management. And it was just such an emotional feeling to be able to think that all of these people were coming together for a common cause, and it really makes us strong. By the same token, I think unions can really limit things as well. It's unfortunate, sometimes there have been projects that have popped up for ABT, and because of our strong union, we haven't gotten to these things quickly enough and haven't been able to come to agreements that work for both parties, or 3 different parties, or whatever the case might be. So, I see both the benefits and the drawbacks of being in a union, but I think overall, it feels special to be a part of one.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So I would like to now move on to one of our questions from our students here. This is kind of going along with relationships. We just talked about the relationship with how the union works, and now we'd like to talk a little bit about your relationship with choreographers. And maybe before you actually answer this question, if you could talk a little bit about the hierarchy of a ballet and the different roles and positions you might find in a rehearsal, in a performance. If you could please address that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah, there's so many moving parts of a ballet company. And, it's everyone from the people behind the desk, working in development, working in special gifts, working in education, working in, just even being company managers, organizing people's visas and touring and that kind of thing. That's a massive job. And then you have the more artistic side of things where you have the dancers. We have apprentices are sort of at the bottom of the hierarchy. Usually, everyone goes through all of these ranks at one point or another. But we have apprentices who are usually the youngest ones that just joined the company fresh out of the junior company. Then we have the corps de ballet, which is which are the people that do most of the group sections. It would be like the flock of swans or the villagers in a scene or what have you. They're really the backbone of any large ballet production. Then you have soloists, and soloists do more featured roles, supporting roles as well, but they also have opportunities to do principal roles from time to time. And then you have principals, which are at the top of the dancer pyramid, and they do the leading roles. So if you go to see, let's say, Cinderella, it will be Cinderella and the Prince. Those will be the principal dancers for the evening. Or the Sleeping Beauty will be Princess Aurora and the Prince, and that sort of thing. So that's really, and then of course you have the PT staff, the massage therapists, the conductors, the orchestra, and everything in between. And so it's really like one large family, which makes it a fun environment to work in.
Yeah, thank you for that. And could you just go in a little more detail about choreographers? What do you look for in a choreographer? What are the qualities that you really appreciate? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Of course, there are choreographers. We have a resident choreographer at ABT, and then we also work with choreographers that come in from the outside to set a brand new work or to restage a work. We have our rehearsal directors that are responsible for writing down the work so that the work doesn't get lost from year to year. But with choreographers, it's really, it can be really hit or miss. It's like sometimes you're working with a choreographer who could be the most wonderful person, but you're not crazy about their work. You could be working with a choreographer who is an incredible creative genius, but terrible to work with. There are a lot of factors that go into, again, like working just with people, as in any industry. I usually don't have problems with choreographers because I'm a very willing person. And so I think that people don't generally have issues with me. I also tend to learn quickly. So choreographers don't get frustrated with the amount of time that they need to use to teach someone like me brand new steps. I can usually absorb it after they show it 1 or 2 times. Some people take a little bit longer. Everyone's different. The thing to me that's almost more important than choreography is choice of music, because I feel that even if the steps themselves don't speak to me or they feel abstract, at least music is a large indicator for me as to how I should be expressing myself artistically. So I really connect to music, and that's usually the thing I'm most anxious to find out about when I begin a new work. And then from there, I feel like I can do as much with it as I want to, or if I don't connect to a piece of music, then I have to find something else to make me feel more invested. But yeah, I've had the privilege of working with a lot of different people, and everyone really has something different to say, has something different to offer, and has something different to teach. So I find that each time I work with someone new or recurring, it's really like a learning experience, and it makes me feel like I grow as an artist and as a dancer.
Yeah, absolutely. Helen, what is your next question?
I was wondering if you have, one of my favorite parts about doing dance myself is the memories and relationships I get to make with other people in the cast. And I want to ask if you have a particular fond memory from since you started dance when you were 6 up to your career now. What is your favorite memory backstage?
So true. I mean, that really is like one of the best parts of the job is just, again, you're essentially, I mean, everyone works with people, but I think there's a certain intimacy that comes for ballet dancers because we're, first of all, creating art all together, which just has a little bit more meaning and depth to it. And also we're touching each other, we're interacting with each other, and it becomes very intimate and close in that regard. I mean, I can't even say a particular moment that necessarily jumps out to me, but I mean, the amount of laughing attacks that I've had, you know, when it hasn't been appropriate and I've said to myself, I'm so getting tired this time, or, you know, gonna get spoken to or lectured, or, you know, the times that you might be messing up, but somebody kind of comes to your rescue. I've definitely jumped into roles that I had never performed or really hardly rehearsed in my life. And I think one of the cooler things about having those experiences when I've done that is that I'll have people like my partners or fellow castmates telling me what's coming next on stage in the moment. And so again, that kind of support is really beautiful. But I think you know, for me also when I got promoted first as a soloist and then got promoted again later as a principal dancer. Yeah, thanks. It was really amazing to hear the vocalization from my peers for how happy and excited they were for me. Because again, we're in a silent art form, so we express ourselves really well with our bodies, but to be able to hear people screaming congratulatory remarks at you is just, it fills and feeds the soul. So yeah, it's really wonderful.
So we have some questions in the comments, and you know, as an all women's school, we are focused on the Women Plus experience. And one of our commenters is actually a male ballet dancer. And so I'm just going to quick put their question in. If you have any advice for a male ballet dancer trying to break into the industry, and in particular, if you think that they should pursue the United States for training as opposed to other other countries.
Yeah, I think in a way, I think that male ballet dancers kind of not have a leg up, but there are fewer males trying to become ballet dancers than there are females, at least, you know, in beginning stages. It's very hard for men to do ballet because I think probably more so than females, there are you know, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of judgment. Ballet is seen as a really maybe feminine art form, and really it's not. There's so much masculinity in ballet that's beautiful to see. Yet men have to suffer bullying because they're men in tights doing ballet. And so I think that generally boys shy away from doing ballet because they could very easily be judged and criticized for it. That being said, it makes this pool of students smaller, and so therefore the opportunities become a little bit larger for maybe boys or men to begin with in the world of ballet. I think that, you know, relative to being in the US versus being in Europe, it really doesn't matter. I think there's a place for everyone, and it's a matter of where the individual feels most comfortable or most connected. And I always try to kind of guide the the younger generation, the next generation, people who are kind of trying to discover what their options are and figure out where they should go. I always pose the question, well, where would you like to end up? And then it's kind of easier to be able to, you know, start with the end goal and then navigate towards that. So if, you know, a person would love to dance in Germany, I would say, well, maybe you should go to Germany and train there and study there and get into the lifestyle and be close to the organization you want to work for. You know, that's certainly what I did being in American Ballet Theatre. I said I want to join this company, so I'm going to go to all their summer programs. I'm going to go to their school. I'm going to go to their junior company to show them how committed I am to being there. And yeah, so the options are there. It's just a matter of narrowing down for yourself. And I think for anyone going, you know, wanting to turn professional, the more auditions you can do, the better, because again, it's just better to have more options, and then you can assess and take it from there.
That's great. Thank you. I remember probably almost a decade ago now working at a Youth America Grand Prix event, and there was a very strong looking young man, probably about to walk on stage for a pas de deux piece, and he had a t-shirt on over his costume that said "Real Men Lift," and it was a picture of, you know, a male ballet dancer picking up a lady, and that stuck with me for some reason, because, you know, it's so true. I'm sure that guy had that kind of bullying that you talked about, where they were talking about, why don't you like go to the gym or something, and he's like, oh yeah, I lift. You know, I could just see
I can lift a woman above my head. And funny that you kind of bring that up, because you know, one of the more famous ballet dancers that lived, Ethan Stiefel, he said, well, you know, if ever anyone tried to come for me, you know, about being in ballet, I would say, well, I'm around girls in leotards and tights all day long and like lifting them and touching them. So it's really an ideal place for, you know, a young male student. But I think, yeah, regardless of gender, regardless of sexuality, regardless of all of those things, you know, I think ballet is really a place for all different kinds of people, and it would be nice if the world could view it that way.
Yeah, well. Especially now. I've been reading some great articles right now about the different companies who are really examining their history and saying, yeah, you know, maybe we've been really exclusive, and we're trying to do different things to take a step in the right direction, you know. So baby steps in that direction. I think it's great to see. Helen, it's your turn. Ask away.
The full fact about going to the gym and lifting, I just want to make one quick comment, because I remember one of my first partnering dance experience was for high school, it was with a football player. And yes, he had the physical capability of lifting me above his head, but I think what went on in his head was, okay, this girl goes up. How does she come down? Gravity.
Oh, Helen.
Oh no.
There's a layer of control, I think, that is clearly overlooked in that scenario.
It was just...
Oh gosh.
I'm glad you're here to tell the tale.
Tell the tale, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let me jump back over to our pre-submitted questions. Oh, okay. I would love to hear a little bit about what you've been doing over the past year. Obviously, it's been a wild year for all of us in the performing arts and entertainment industries. And I know that you've been keeping active. So can you tell us a little bit about how you've gotten through thus far?
Yeah. You know, I think when the beginning of the pandemic and the quarantine, you know, the shutdown happened. At the time, I had just come off of a big debut. I danced Giselle at the Kennedy Center. It was something that I worked on for months, and it culminated in a couple of performances, and I was so just on a high about that. And then from there, we had more tours around the US, and then our 2-month season at the Metropolitan Opera House at Lincoln Center. And I was supposed to perform Giselle again on tour. I was meant to debut Princess Aurora in The Sleeping Beauty. So I had a lot of things lined up on my plate. I felt like I had a lot of momentum, and I thought, you know, maybe this is my year. And because I was still a soloist dancer. And then when everything got canceled, I was devastated because I just, especially for a ballet dancer, you're not going to get that year back. It's obviously a physical profession. And so it's not like I can just dance later into my 40s or 50s. You know, that's not that kind of thing. So I was really frustrated. You know, it was really sad. I think I began by thinking it would just be a few weeks that we were away, and then it, you know, later.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember moving to Westchester, where my family's from. I moved in with my parents and in their house, and I was with my sister, and it was nice to be secluded there. I was dancing every day from their foyer. I ordered like a portable bar from Amazon, and I was trying to keep in shape, thinking we were coming back sometime soon. And just for my own mental health and physical health, I wanted to keep moving. And then, you know, it became very clear that we were going to be in this predicament for a bit of time. I started focusing kind of more on social media, and someone reached out to me, a mother, and said, you know, would you ever consider teaching my daughter a private lesson on, you know, virtually? And so I said yes, and worked with her daughter. And then it kind of like, from either word of mouth or, again, people saw that I was teaching via Instagram, it kind of really took off. And all of a sudden I found that I was a ballet teacher teaching 5 private lessons a day. You know, there was you know, to people from all over the world. There was an instance where I taught a young girl from India. It was like 10:30 p.m. our time here in New York, and 8 a.m. her time in India. And we got on the Zoom, and I gave her a ballet class, and it's been great because I've been teaching ever since. And I think it was wonderful to be able to delve into that side of the profession that I don't get to do normally because I'm too busy to accept the teaching engagements that people have asked me to do in the past. So that kind of really reinvigorated me. And then on top of it, you know, I think dance started to like move to be on film more, and people were doing projects remotely, and I was asked to participate in some things. So that gave me something to work towards. But I think the almost like the best part of the pandemic for me was being able to have that breathing space, which was such a gift. I was so sad when things stopped, but then being forced to be, you know, as dancers, we're dancing all year round. There's no such thing as an off season. We have to keep in physical and mental condition, literally practically 365 days of the year. So I've been going straight for, you know, 20 years. And the fact that I was gifted time to pause, reflect, reevaluate, re-examine everything, and just like take a moment for myself was huge. I didn't even know I needed it. So I'm really grateful actually for that time. And I think I'm lucky that I'm a person who was thriving the pandemic. I know the pandemic was, you know, it was like one of two ways. Either you were experiencing the lowest of the lows, or some people really were doing well. And in my case, I started on a low, and I tried to change my perspective. And I think part of that also has to do with just my mentality, not dissimilar to, let's say, being injured. If you have to put in the time to heal, if you have to put in the time to, you know, wait for the pandemic to pass, you might as well enjoy yourself. So I think once I shifted my mentality, it became a lot easier for me to feel more productive, more creative. And also, you know, I've had many friends who in the past have become freelance dancers, and to me that always sounded really scary because there's so much uncertainty while you're able to, you know, do projects that you're really invested in. You also don't know where your next paycheck's coming from. And this was like my first experience ever sort of feeling like a freelance dancer, and I've got to say I enjoyed it quite a bit. So it was good.
Do you have a favorite project that you've gotten to work on over the past year?
Yeah, I think probably I did several shoots. One of them was called Swan Lake Bath Ballet, and this choreographer slash filmmaker named Corey Baker basically came up with a concept to film everyone remotely and put dancers in their bathtubs. And have you seen this, Helen?
I think so, yeah.
It ended up actually getting like 7 million views or something like that, and growing. So it really took off, but I remember being a part of that project and thinking it was so like wacky and cool, and it turned out really amazingly. I also was able to debut a brand new, like a piece that I'd never performed before in the pandemic.
Oh.
There was, so Misty Copeland, who's a colleague of mine who dances at American Ballet Theatre, she did a fundraiser for the arts called Swans for Relief, and she asked, I think, 37 different ballerinas from all around the world to do segments of a very famous variation called the Dying Swan. And I had never performed this Dying Swan before, and this was something I got to work on and perform for video, but it was a debut nonetheless. And I was thinking, wow, how cool is this that I'm still premiering new things even in a pandemic, and I thought that was a great experience.
Yeah.
I got to do some things with ABT, which has been great. I got to work with some colleagues on dance films that were, you know, again, intimate, and I think there was a lot of creativity came through just because of the limitations of being in a pandemic. Obviously, you can't necessarily be in the same room as someone or touch someone. And I remember a company member who actually retired last year, Alex Moody, he did a piece, like it looked like a pas de deux, but both myself and my partner, we danced at completely different times without each other in the room. And then he sort of transposed the images on top of each other. So it looked like we were doing a pas de deux, even though we were not in the same room at all. So people became very inventive. And I think that's been a nice departure from the usual routine.
I saw that piece, you and your partner. I think you must have put it out on social media or something.
Yeah.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
There you go. Helen, do you have another question? I can't believe we're already almost at the 15-minute mark. It's been flying by.
Yes.
I definitely have to. I just know after this, I have to go back to the bathtub video because I think I watched it thinking, oh, people in the bathtub, cool. But then it did. Okay, replay. Yeah. What on earth is this?
When you go back and watch it, I'm the one who actually is in a swimming pool. I got lucky. I got to be the person in a swimming pool. I do have a moment in a bathtub, but I had some more space to stretch out. But I'll tell you, when I had to submerge my iPhone, like brand new iPhone, in an underwater case, I was nervous, but the filmmaker made sure that, you know, I had the right equipment.
Oh boy.
So can you walk us through what a day in the life is? Talk about, you know, your rehearsal schedule, even your eating schedule, wake up, tell us it all.
Sure. Yeah, in a normal world, I would be, you know, in a normal rehearsal, on a normal rehearsal week, I would be waking up and going to American Ballet Theatre studios, which are down in like Flatiron District. We take a morning class, which is supposed to warm us up for our day. It's a normal ballet technique class from 10:15 to 11:45, and then rehearsals commence at 12 o'clock and usually go until 7 p.m. And we work Tuesdays through Saturdays. And then usually I work almost my hardest on one of my days off. On a Monday, I'll go to ballet class, and then I'll go to Pilates, and then I go to a private coaching session with my teachers. I'm a person who likes to take a lot of initiative to work and on myself and invest in myself. So I often get outside coaching from ABT, since ABT is such a large company and they have so many dancers to rehearse and so many productions to put on. We're a little bit pressed for time there. And for me, I like to study details up until where your eyelashes are placed. So for me, it's important to have those like few hours in the studio one-on-one with my coaches. And I'll do that on a Monday and then go get chiropractor and acupuncture. And it's almost like, yeah, the day off becomes very strenuous. And then when we have either a touring season or our season at Lincoln Center, we'll do something similar, which will wake up for morning class. We do a whole slew of rehearsals. Usually we're rehearsing the next week's production the week before, and then at night we're performing something totally different. And so we usually rehearse until about 5 o'clock, and then it's time to basically quickly get ready for the show, eat dinner, do hair, makeup, costume, re-warm up, and be on stage for our 7:30 call. And then we dance until maybe 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, go to bed, try to, decompress and wake up and do it all the next day. And that usually, we have in those 2 months that are most strenuous for us, we have 64 shows. So it's a lot, 8 shows a week. It becomes very intense, but also the most probably rewarding and fulfilling time of the year.
Helen, do you have any? Yep, of course you do.
I do have a question. When do you go grocery shopping during the week?
I know. I feel like I go grocery shopping on Sundays mostly, just to try to like set myself up for the week. I think there's a lot of ordering in too. Sometimes I just like don't have the energy and I'm lazy, and it's not the best. I try to make my own food, but sometimes you're just too pooped out to do it. And I'm all for, for as hard as I work, I'm a pretty big couch potato on the other hand. Like I like to veg out completely. I love to put on my favorite reality TV show. I love to sleep and sleep in if I can. So as I try to find that balance that makes me feel whole.
So what is the favorite reality TV show?
So my favorite is 90 Day Fiancé. I don't know if either of you are familiar, but it's like one of these relationship shows where usually someone from the US wants to marry a foreigner, and the foreigner applies for a K-1 visa, which brings them over to the United States, and then they have 90 days to get married. And you are essentially following this couple along their journey in those 90 days. Typically, they haven't lived together. Typically, they come from very different backgrounds and cultures. Sometimes it's very obvious that the foreigner coming over just wants a green card. It gets very juicy, but it's my total guilty pleasure, and I really love it.
That's great. Helen, what other questions do you have?
I really wanted to ask if this is a question that I ask a lot of the people on Millie Mondays is, have you ever had something incredibly unexpected? I've been told not to call failure, but something unexpected that happened during a performance on stage. What was your initial reaction and how did you eventually overcome it?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not uncommon to fall, not uncommon to blank out on choreography, not uncommon to miss an entrance, not uncommon to have a costume malfunction. Like, it's definitely show business. Things are super spontaneous, but I remember there was one particular show that I had in the Nutcracker, and I was dancing a pas de deux with my partner. The music, it was like a very fast moment from the Nutcracker, and maybe the whole dance lasted 60 seconds. And in those 60 seconds, there are lifts and tosses and pirouettes and throws and everything imaginable. It was choreographed in a very acrobatic way, I would say. And I remember going on with my partner, and there was a moment where he had to, like, I'm standing on 2 feet, and he has to flip me over like in a cartwheel, and I land on my 2 feet again. And I think like he just thought I weighed more than I did, or I don't know what was going through his mind, but it took so much force to flip me that my feet didn't even, like, I went 360 degrees and passed, like my feet didn't even touch the floor. I landed like flat on my back. He fell over me. We quickly got up to try to recover. And then basically, because the dance was fast and it was technical, it's very hard to kind of catch up and stay crisp and really stay on top of it. And kind of the whole rest of the dance sort of like fell apart. We were half laughing, but it was half like very unacceptable, all the things that happened in our very short period of time. But I think, yeah, it's, you just, I don't know. I think a lot of times when you fall or you make a mistake, it feels like seconds long. And then, you know, you could talk to someone afterward and they could be like, I didn't even see you mess up, you know? So I think we're accustomed to trying to adapt in quickly in those kinds of situations. But it always sucks when it happens because you're like, damn it, I wish I didn't fall just now. But, you know, there are accidents all the time.
Well, and like stage time feels like slow motion, whereas in the audience, it's a blink of an eye. When you're living through it, whether it's on production end, performing end, it feels so significant no matter what it is.
Yep, pretty much. Absolutely, yeah. No, but there have been some great stories, and I love listening to dancers of past generations talk about their experiences in a similar way too. So there's some hysterical things that make for a great story at the end of the day. Maybe not so fun in the moment, but.
Yeah. Helen, do you have any other questions?
Oh, I get to have one more.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask if there's something, so it's still something unexpected, but you said that since a very young age, you knew this is what you wanted to do. And then at every stage, it was just a checkpoint of, yes, I'm heading in the right direction. But was there ever a moment where something just very upsetting that happened that at the moment you felt like maybe this isn't the right path for me, maybe I wasn't cut out for it, what am I going to do with my life?
Yeah, I've definitely experienced some moments in my career that were really disheartening. There was never a point at which I felt like I wanted to give this up completely, but for like towards, I don't know, in the last few years, I've discovered that sometimes hard work and consistency is not enough. I learned that sort of the hard way. I'm an earnest person who just wants to put in the effort and have the reward on the other side of it. But of course, as in any industry, there are politics. There are, you know, somebody could just not like you just for no reason, for seemingly no reason. You know, life's not always fair. And as simple as that sounds, it actually took me a while to learn that concept, because again, you have this idea that, well, if I do everything right, then 2 + 2 = 4, you know, and that didn't always happen for me. And that was really frustrating and really disappointing. And I basically had to learn how to be my own best self advocate. You know, again, I'm a type of person who likes to let my work speak for itself, knowing that not everyone's going to be a fan, but again, that if I do something well, that hopefully I'll, you know, be rewarded for it. And again, that wasn't really my path up until this point. And I kind of ended up having some uncomfortable conversations with my director and my boss to basically say, like, look, you know me, I'm not a squeaky wheel, but I think I'm going to have to come in here and squeak on occasion. And, you know, and we'd laugh about it. But I really had to put myself in an uncomfortable position for me, because it's not in my nature to speak up. And so there were some moments where I definitely considered leaving ABT at times. And this was my dream company. And I thought,
Yeah.
I'm not going to have the career I want here. And so I have taken steps to consider other options, which I never thought was going to be a thing when I was 8 years old. But fortunately, again, I was promoted like in August of last year in the middle of a pandemic. We weren't at work. I hadn't seen my boss or my friends for months. And I didn't think that in that political and financial climate that promotions would even be on the table. So it came as a huge shock and surprise to me when I was promoted alongside some of my other friends. And but I've had to sort of navigate some of those things that just maybe don't always feel fair, and realize that that's part of life too.
Yeah, no, I mean, those are some great takeaways, I think, for our students too.
Yeah,
finding that balance. It's real. It's just life, but it's hard.
Yeah, and I think there's a way to do that, a way to be your own best self advocate. It's definitely not the right approach to be kicking and screaming and pounding at the door and demanding things. But, when the time feels right and when it feels deserved, and when you're able to have, be both truthful but respectful in those kinds of situations, I think it really, those things happen for the best.
Yeah. So on that note, we only have a couple minutes remaining. So I'm wondering if you have any advice or any closing words you'd like to give to our students.
Definitely. I think, first and foremost, you want to have fun if you can. I think I've seen, at least in ballet, and I'm certain it's true of many other endeavors and professions and industries, we can get so wrapped up in our work sometimes that we lose sight of the reason we started doing what we love in the first place. And it's really a privilege to do what you love. Not many people can say that they love their jobs. So I think it's a luxury to be able to do what you love. It feels like, you never work a day in your life when that happens. And I think it's important to continue to have fun, to continue to have a good sense of humor about things, feel fine laughing at yourself. It's okay to mess up, and also to put in the hard work. I know at least in ballet, it's extremely common that people will go onto Instagram, go onto YouTube, and just go down the rabbit hole of videos and pictures of people. But I always try to stress that as great as it is to have all of that material accessible to us, to also not get lost and stuck in that, because social media is not always an accurate representation of people's lives, nor is it an accurate representation of what success is. And so I always try to stress, put in the hard work in the studio. That's where we grow. Don't get distracted by things on social media. And the more that you're able to be vulnerable and open yourself up to criticism, let's say, the more growth I think you'll experience. So I always try to tell people, have fun and work hard too.
That's great. Thank you. And Helen is actually, as she mentioned, one of our student workers, and she has arranged a digital field trip. We're actually going to see ABT next week. Is it, Helen, or the week after?
I think it's in April.
In April. Okay. In April, we're going to be, obviously.
Rotmansky? Are you seeing the Rotmansky program?
Rotmansky, that's how you pronounce it.
Yeah, no, that was totally it. That's so cool. So I'll be in that performance. And what happened is in January, I basically embarked on a 5-week residency. Me and maybe 9 other dancers, we went and we sequestered together and quarantined together and created a brand new work with our resident choreographer, Alexei Rotmansky. And I'll be in 2 pieces on the program, both of them debuts. I'll be dancing the Rose Adagio from The Sleeping Beauty, which I was meant to premiere last year, but didn't happen because of the pandemic. But I'm going to be performing a super iconic moment from that ballet, exactly, where there's a series of balances, and basically Aurora, on her 16th birthday, is meeting some of her suitors. So it's a really beautiful part of the ballet. And then we'll be dancing in a brand new work by Ratmansky, which is more abstract, to Leonard Bernstein music. And it's kind of a circus. So we're hoping that it, the way it was put together and edited together turns out well. And I think it'll be a fun program.
Yeah, so exciting. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come talk to all of us. And now we'll be really excited to see the upcoming performance.
Thank you for supporting us.
Yeah. So if anyone is interested in getting tickets for that, you can email gmt@barnard.edu, and we can get those tickets for you at no cost to our students. And thank you for joining us for Millie Monday. Next week is the 22nd, and we will be featuring Carly, an intimacy choreographer from the West Coast. She'll be coming to talk to us about that career. And thank you, everyone, for your time.
Thank you so much, you all. This was so fun, and I'm so excited to perform for you virtually.
That's right. We're so happy to have you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Skylar.
Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Allie.
Bye.
Bye.